everyone. My name is Arnie, and I'm excited to be here in this event in a speaker panel for NVC and restoring the fabric of living community as part of the second Japan Global NVC Rising online festival. Yeah, I'm excited and a bit nervous, and I hope this event will go clear and will give you all some more insights about nonviolent communication as a tool for building and living in community. There will be 4 speakers that I will present soon. And then at the end, there will be time for questions from you. So a little bit about myself. I'm an NVC practitioner for some years. And I was living in a community, part of a community that was called ECOMI in the West Bank, Palestine, together with Shachar and Racheli and some other participants. A living community of Israelis, Palestinians, and internationals, where NVC was one of the main tools that we used to engage with each other and to do our community work, as well as workshops that we held in the venue, in the place itself, for many other people. Tarek was one of the teachers, facilitators there as well. And today I live in a small community, a commune, you can say, a house commune with another family and my son and another housemate and some animals. And we are also trying to use NVC to make our life better. So this is a little bit about myself. In Israel, I live in Israel. And I would like now to present the speakers that are participating today.
Arnie, just before you present the speakers, can we let Yukari do a welcoming in?
Yes, sorry.
Can we present Yukari, or you want me to present?
Yes.
Yeah?
Please, Yukari, may you present yourself and the event in Japanese?
Yeah, I just want to say that Yukari is just a second. I'll just. Okay. Yukari, if I can just say something about you, that to present you to the space, that you are the head of the Japanese organizing and team of the NVC Global Festival in Japan, and a film producer by profession, and currently a certified trainer candidate. Please welcome. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for your kind introduction, and hello everyone. Good evening. My name is Yukari Tatsumura. Hello. I'm very excited to see all these different faces, and I'm really happy seeing so many of you turning up. And I'm joining from Japan. It's 7 p.m. in Japan, and we know that what time is it in Germany, US, and Israel? It's just great that we share the same space at the same time, regardless of where we are, and we're connected to each other. And it's a woven fabric, and it means special to me. And okay, so we're gonna be transcending the barriers, and then we'll be talking medicinal tool NVC, and then we will be talking about it. And we're very grateful for everyone who made this happen. So thank you everyone who is organizing this and who got involved in making this happen. And then in particular, the rising team who is running this. And then if we go back to 2 years ago or 4 years ago, we actually had this NVC Japan festival. And then those teams really helped us. And then we actually had a session about this in the community with Israeli people and then Palestinian people. And that was the first time that I learned about that actual practice. And that was very, very special learning and how those tools, this tool NVC has been used in everyday life and establishing the community is a very, very insightful things. And I'm very excited to be able to hear it again. And then all other practices. And so 8:30, so this is going to be 90-minute session. I hope that, you'll be able to have really fruitful, really rich time. And we want to make this an interactive. Okay, back to the organizer or facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you, Yukari. I didn't understand most of it, but it's wonderful to hear Japanese, and I hope the English translation gets to everyone. If not, please notice the technical supporters. So I will present now the speakers for this event. First, Tarek Maasarani. Can you raise your hand, show yourself? Maybe say hello, just hello.
Hello, everyone.
So Tarek is from Washington, D.C., USA, and is a lawyer and full-time activist who has been working in restorative justice programs, as well as many other nonviolent community development projects worldwide. Tarek frames much of his life's work, whether in dialogue, activism, around the notion of community building, and has been resident and active part of urban intentional communities in the USA for many years. So we will hear more about it. Next participant is Shachar Dagan.
Hello.
Shachar has been living in community for much of his adult life, including Tamera, Portugal, Ecomi in the West Bank, and currently living in an urban community in Freiburg, Germany. He's a Greenberg method therapist and computer developer. Good combination. Has been practicing NVC for over a decade and is the initiator of NVC Rising, this festival. And Shachar is currently in Germany. The next participant, Racheli Zohar, which unfortunately you can't see, but can you say hello, Racheli?
Hi, I'm so sorry that my camera isn't working. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Racheli is a visual artist, a yogi, NVC practitioner, mediator, and non-certified NVC trainer. She has been working in community building and nurturing for over a decade in Israel and Palestine, and currently living in Israel, Palestine. And the last participant is Kai Sawyer.
Konbanwa, hello.
Hello, Kai.
こんにちは、カイ君です。カイさんですけれども、東京アーバンパーマカルチャーの創始者です。そしてさまざまな実験的な取り組みをしてまして、ギフト エコノミーですねっていうところで、パーマカルチャーですとか NVC、マインドフルネスシステム思考なんかをですね、様々な形で使って実験的なことをやっていると。そして、道場ですね、というものをいすみ市に作って、NVC を実践していると。ということで、カイさん、よろしくお願いします。
So we are hearing Japanese translation. Maiko, are you on the right channel?
Do you mind, Arnie, or repeating what you just said?
All of us are hearing Japanese translation.
Yeah, it'd be really great if you could.
I haven't chosen a channel, so maybe there's a mix.
Yeah, so I spoke over his English, or sorry, Arnie's English. Do you mind repeating?
Yes, yes.
Continue.
Yes.
Arnie, do you mind introducing him once again in English?
So we will proceed now to the.
Now I don't hear Arnie.
Yeah, Arnie's not in an English channel, interpretation channel. So my request is not coming to the Arnie.
Arnie,
Great if you can ask.
Arnie, you need to choose your English channel. So do you know how to do that? Shahar, can you explain to him how to choose his channel?
Arnie, are you not on an English channel?
Okay, now I am.
Okay.
Thank you. So we will proceed to the questions part. So each of the participants will answer the questions. And the first question is, what is the character and setting of the community you are or have been part of? Some things you love about it, some challenges. So like short introduction of your community or your community project. Tarek, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Ani. Hi, everyone. Wow, what a cross-global crowd we have here. It's really a joy to
don't hear
look at.
Tarek. Do other people hear Tarek?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You can hear me? Good. Well, I just wanted to note how it's a joy to just see how many different faces there are from across the globe. Yeah, so the intentional community that I have a number of experiences, but the one that I'd like to talk to start off with at least is an urban intentional community that was founded in 2008 in Washington, D.C., or just outside of the District of Columbia. It was really the vision of a person named Ryan McAllister, who had worked already for 10 years prior to 2008, gathering people to live with. So he's a person that is not scared to get very deep with others. He's actually the person that also introduced me to nonviolent communication. And over that period of time, he brought together folks who are also excited about the prospect of living together. Now, what made this seemingly unique, I had spent 15 years before that already living in group homes and situations. But what made this unique is that his vision really involved, first of all, grounding in nonviolent communication. He was quite skilled and integrated in the way that he used nonviolent communication. It was also the set of values that he wanted the community to gather around. Now, he didn't have those values decided in advance. Part of the process in the years before we actually had a physical space in 2008 was figuring out what are the kind of values we wanted to ground ourselves in. So having a set of values that brought us together was an important part of the vision. And thirdly, for an intentional community that's urban, we faced the difficulty of most of us being part of the money or exchange economy, at the same time living in very tight quarters because it's hard to get large space in a city that is affordable. So I think what we did that was different from many different group homes in our situation was a great deal of sharing. Certainly we're sharing space, all the common spaces were shared, but we ended up sharing cars, we shared childcare, we shared labor, we shared childcare and tools and to a very great degree, like a higher degree. There was a lot less independence if you joined than I think I'd seen in other living situations. And I really loved it. I remember so often coming home and thinking with gratitude that I get to live in a place that lives these values, that has a very low ecological footprint, and that has such tight relationships. The one downside is when you lived so tightly in a social space, there wasn't much reason to ever leave. We'd have our own parties, whether they were planned or spontaneous. We had enough people. Yeah.
One more minute. Now you can continue. Yeah. Just finish the sentence.
Thanks, Ani. So we had about 18 people at the most living with us. That included children, including my children. So it seemed like you had a lot of those social needs provided for within the space.
Thank you, Tarek. And maybe we will dive deeper into some of the things you said in the other questions. Shaha, would you like to continue about your community and what do you love about it?
Yes, just a second. So my community, so first of all, I want to say there's many communities I'm gonna talk about in this time. And my current community, what I really appreciate and like about it is that it allows a huge range of diversity of voices to be heard inside it. People who are on completely different political stands, and people who are completely different, having different life rhythm, different life.
Shaha, can you also explain shortly what is the character of the community or the setting? Like where is it or how does it?
Yes. Community setting is in the side of the city. So in a way it's not in nature, it's an urban place, and it's composed of 250 individuals approximately. And in this community, there's many little sub-communities that are sharing flats. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and you can continue say what you love about it. I just wanted to have a clearer idea of what is it.
And the way it's been working so far is around decision making is that anyone who would like to take an active role in the decision making process is invited to do so. And when you do not want to take an active role, then you don't have to. And it creates space for everyone a bit to be heard. And at the moment, we are not using NVC not in a conscious way to make any decisions or processes. And still sometimes it is needed to mediate or to bridge conflicts, and then we do use the help of nonviolent communication.
Thank you. And this is in Freiburg, Germany, right?
Correct.
Yes. Thank you, Shaha. Next, Racheli.
Hi, I'm also really happy to be here. And I want to just say that I had a last moment cancellation from my childcare. So my child has my phone and you cannot see me, which I'm mourning but it's also interesting actually, not to have my camera on, but I'm mourning it. And I also am really, really hopeful that my child is not disturbed, like coming in the middle and speaking to me, but to know that if it happens, it's yeah, I will just have to for a moment answer him. And yeah, so about the community that I will be sharing is specifically the experience of living in ECOMI, Ecological Middle East, and it was a community that lasted for 8 years in the desert next to the Dead Sea in the West Bank of Israel, Palestine. And at the time that I was living there, we were 10 people living on the ground, which were living there full time, Israelis, Palestinians, internationals. And so straight away, you can notice that maybe the question of language was quite a challenge. Every single conversation we had to interpret continuously in pretty much 3 languages, sometimes a little more. And this was wonderful and challenging. And we had a cultural educational center where we hosted workshops of up to 100 people that suddenly you could have for 9 or 10 days, 100 people sharing the space, learning together. And also it was always an open space. So it was a kind of a visitors center where you could come. The special thing about it that is sort of like a hole in the separation wall. So Israelis and Palestinians were able to come there freely, pretty much any time of the day, have coffee, share a meal, share a lesson of languages or yoga. And so it was a very open space. And the things that were guiding us, I guess the vision was actually, it came from a vision quest of the founders that they had like a spiritual vision, and the guidelines were, I don't know if the word is guidelines, like the principles were connection to the earth. So really this idea that we don't earn the earth, we're a part of it. So living very close to the ground. We had shared showers and bathrooms, compost toilets. The water from the shower would go straight to the garden, the water from the kitchen. Very simple living, and then spirituality beyond religion. So some kind of connection to the sacred. We had a center in the middle of the small farm that we were living in. We had like a meditation prayer place that you could come and do your prayers in whatever form it was for you.
Racheli, 1 more minute.
Okay, maybe I'll say, yeah, and the NVC was a very big part of this place. There was a lot of NVC trainings happening at the time that we were living there. All the people who are in the core group were very much practicing NVC. I have so much to say about the joys and the challenges, and I have a minute. So a huge joy was the sense of togetherness, the sense of hope that it gave me, that, wow, we can actually live together, and we have this sense of freedom, of the joy of co-creating our own reality and writing and owning our own story. That was a huge joy. Challenges, I'll say really quickly, I think there was a challenge at some point of the clarity who this space belongs to, and ownership and boundaries, because it was an open space that people could just come and visit and stay. So there was some confusion there. Okay, I have so many more things to say about the challenges, so maybe later when you come back to me.
Yes, thank you, Racheli. And yeah, the childcare, the issue of childcare is such a big thing in community, and I'm also right now, my child is with his grandparents, so it's a big issue for community building, I guess. So thank you for bringing it live, this challenge. Kai, would you like to present your
community? Sure.
Which language will you be speaking?
I'll speak in English. I feel torn about it, but I'm on the English channel, so I will do it.
Kai, I also want to ask you to present yourself, because I think some people didn't hear who you are because of the translation mix-up.
Okay.
And also, just to remind all the speakers to speak a bit slower because of the interpretation. Thanks.
Okay. My name is Kai Sawyer. I am half Japanese, half American, and I currently live in Chiba Prefecture, which is where Disneyland is. So it's 2 hours outside of Tokyo where I live. And yeah, I'm a peace activist. I'm really just totally in love with nonviolence, including nonviolent communication, permaculture, mindfulness, and just trying to make the world a more lovely place while I'm alive. And I have a 4-year-old daughter who is my main teacher at the moment. So yeah, the nature of my community, it's kind of a residential training center, a refuge for peace activists, and a space to experiment with a different type of culture, and everything included, economics, philosophy, how you live the day. And I'm really interested in kind of like blurring boundaries. So it's kind of hard to say what the nature of the community is. We do different experiments, but we have a residential program anywhere from 2 months to the longest person who's been around is 2 years. And it's deeply rooted in ecological living. So I'm mostly made up of rainwater that we're catching off of the roof. And we don't throw away any of our excrements. So any poo that we do, we catch it on site and use it. So I'm also made of that now. And we try to cook with fire, locally sourced wood and bamboo. So yeah, it's called the Peace and Permaculture Dojo. Dojo means the place for the path. And so this is a place for anybody interested in peace, ecological living, and nonviolence to come together, either to stay or just to pass through, and do the, both be excited to find people that resonate with that vision and also to challenge themselves. So yeah, NVC has been a central part of the culture there. And it brings both a lot of, I think it's the kind of it's a spiritual level of NVC that keeps us together, and go really deep into the pain, the trauma that we feel for the world, but also in us. And sometimes it's just so heavy that it kind of blows up every once in a while. So every year we have an explosion, but people stay, come back and continue to train. So yeah, that's a little bit of the community. And now the way I conceptualize it is we're trying to change the whole local city. So the dojo is just a place to create a different narrative, a different way of living in everyday life, train people and attract people who want that life, and slowly not create an enclosed eco-village, but create an eco-village out of what already exists. So that's kind of our experiment. And yeah, excited to talk more about it later.
Thank you, Kai. So thank you everyone for presenting your community or your projects. And the next question is to connect the nonviolent communication practice and the community living. So the question is, where and when did you see NVC being used in your community on a practical, tangible level in the daily life of the community as a practice that supports life together? And I would really love to have examples of how you use it, of where you use it, to like give more living examples to how it can be used. So I'm giving option to anyone who has an example to start.
I'm happy to start.
Okay, Shachar.
And
I would just like to say that we have about 5 minutes each for this question.
Okay, that's a long time. So like I said, we don't use NVC on a routinely basis, and we do use it when it's needed. And when it is needed, or how we use it, when there are two opposing voices of groups or of single people that cannot hear each other at all, or there is kind of a conflict that they cannot solve on their own. And the community is very...
I would also love if you can give like a specific example, for example, washing dishes, or I don't know, if you have, it would be good also.
Yes. For example, a concrete example about some of the community members really wanted that we all wear masks in the staircase where the stairs to the different flats are. And this was a big topic. And the person who suggested it or wanted it to happen was faced with a lot of criticism, and he could not hear the other voices, and some of the other people could not hear him. And there it's somehow very much available in this community that people that are disconnected from the event join in and give empathy to the both sides. So meaning the third person available, like it's very, very available here to have a third person to process those things. And I find this also part of NVC, like first to hear, listen, and then also make decisions.
And in the case of this example, so you just gave empathy, but what was kind of the result, or how was it resolved?
The resolution was actually in the feeling of the people who proposed this idea, not in the actual solving of the situation, but more like willingness to let go, or willingness to ask this as a open request. Hey, it's really nice for me if people wear masks. If people don't wear masks, then it is like this. In a way, one could say it's like a bit giving up the stiffness or the some more flexibility. There was flexibility.
And this, you say, was thanks to nonviolent skills or empathy, listening, that allow this to actually happen.
Yeah, for me, it seems like this. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shachar.
I would love to go next, because I feel like my kid is occupied. It's a good moment. So we had first of all, we had a lot of NVC trainings that were happening. So it was just steeping in, I don't know if that's the right word, like it was steeping into the culture and into the consciousness of everyone in the space. So that was very, very helpful to just create this joint mentality and way of being in the space. We also had in our joint meals, so a kind of a check-in of people sharing and witnessing with empathy, like empathy circle basically in the morning, at least one of the meals of the joint meals of the day. So that created a lot of connection and a very special experience, both for self-connection, because I share in a group, and for circle, a connection in the space. And we sometimes had in the schedule of, let's say, the morning, we have to clean the bathroom, we got to cook breakfast, and then there's time for empathy buddies, two people sitting together and sharing, which I think also creates a lot of emotional hygiene and connection, like a web of connections between the people. Sometimes you sat with someone you never met before. Sometimes you got to sit with your best friend. So that I think was very supportive. And in terms of decision making and the core group that was actually holding the space, because at any given moment we had the people who are living there continuously, volunteers, which could be there for 3 days to 6 months, and guests. So the core group, we also had our meetings. We had practical meeting once a week where we would make decisions and plan. And there we very much used NVC as a method of hearing each other and making decisions that are need-based. And we also had like a group processing meeting once a week where we could talk about conflicts and things that hurt us. And there we also used NVC. And maybe one more thing that I'll say, which I really liked, which is that, as I'll speak a little bit about also couples in this challenge, if you give me time, but we had, intimate relationships, people who were living there with their partners. And it happened to me more than once that I had this privilege of my friends were fighting, had a conflict inside their relationship, and they would come to me. All of us speak NVC, practice NVC, trust each other in this way. And I would get to support them through their conflict in their intimate relationship, which I think is a privilege. Now I live in a village where I really don't feel comfortable to share, like it's a norm not to share about the fights you have in your household with people around you. And because we had NVC as a culture, it was like, voila, it's part of life to fight, and let's lean into the conflict. And we can also even receive support from other people in the community. So that was speak slower. Thank you, Shaham. Yeah. So I think that was very supportive. And I don't know if now, this is enough for now, I guess, right? Because
what did you want to add? You have a few more.
It's just I had this thing that I wanted to share with you in the first part about challenges, because we came from different cultures. We weren't that handles sick. Is
okay,
that
Racheli, the challenges? We have another question, so maybe
wonderful. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Racheli. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of our shared time in this community, and I think the practice of having decision-making practical meeting, which of course brings up a lot of emotions or things, whether it's about money or any other kind of decision, then having another meeting where you can process it and talk about it more, and you don't have to do it while you're making the decision, was a very good practice. Thank you for reminding it. Who would like to go next?
I can speak a little. There's so many areas. It's hard to summarize it. I just want to say that for me, the way we understand NVC in our kind of dojo culture is a way of being. So it's not necessarily semantics. It's not just the needs and feelings, but it's really a state of being, and wearing that lens where our focus is on needs and an awareness that we get trapped in strategies, and that the strategies that aren't working often torture us because we feel like they're the need, So I feel like just that general awareness that the suffering is coming from us. There are structural issues, but just having that awareness makes the kind of the tension a little more, it's easier to navigate the tension because there is an awareness that the feeling is alive in us, and it's something beautiful in us that's wanting to be spoken to. So we also do check-ins quite regularly, not always so deep, but just a way to remember that we're not here to do, we're here to be, and to be in a different way. So reminding ourselves every day, several times a day, like we're here to practice this path, and it's not so important. The results are not exact. It's not really the results we're trying to get. It's just a chance to practice and stay in a different narrative. And one of the most specific ones that I'm really celebrating and challenging myself is when my 4-year-old daughter is living with us, to really not just be like, oh no, I know you want to do that, but you need to do this because that's as your parent, I know better and I'm going to guide you into my world. And just to stop and just acknowledge what she's saying, you know, like, I don't want to brush my teeth, I'm playing. So it's like, you know, instead of being like, no, I want you to brush your teeth because I don't want you to get cavities and we're going to bed soon and I'm tired, you know, which is what I want to do. And I do it if I don't catch myself. And also practicing this with other people who may not have their own kids, but are engaging with her. And she's really the teacher for us of NVC. And so just trying to acknowledge her as an equal and just remembering to connect to her before we say what we want, especially because we have so much power in the situation. So that's a big part, and it's a really big celebration, partly because of my understanding of social change, and that if we don't change our relationship with children, we're going to perpetuate the things that are causing us so much suffering. And so for me, this is like the most important piece, is like, and also for inner transformation, because my child really teaches me how much I've changed since I was a child, and how much fear and shame and trauma that I'm holding that prevents me from saying what I really want to people, because I don't trust people, you know, as much as I would love to. So yeah, working with my daughter and really trying to change. Even the NVC culture that I was a part of was, you know, often it's for adults and there's no kids, and kids would become a problem in our adult NVC practice sessions. So wanting to change that to be like, no, we need to invite the kids. We need to create that connection, because if we care about sustainability, I mean, there's no sustainability without kids. So yeah, that's a big part of what we're doing. And yeah, there's a lot of other stuff, but I'll just stop there.
Thank you, Kai. Yeah, I really want to take in what you said about the state of being, and yeah, letting go of the result and to see what is. And it's a big thing to remember it. Thank you for that. Tarek, would you like to continue?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm also warmed up by the stories that Racheli shared of Ecomi. I also relate to what Kai said about what we consider NVC. For me, it certainly is a tool, but it's also it's a form of awareness. So it's funny to think about using it. It just sort of is. It's there. It's like breath. It happens. And so in the intentional community that I mentioned before, which to make clear, I'm not currently in, we had meetings. NVC, you know, would become apparent in all kinds of spaces and times and things like that. But certainly when it becomes most evident when there are issues, when there's emotions running high and conflict that's happening. And so we had regular formalized places to process and make decisions and engage in conflict. Most of the decision making kind of happened in what we called our business meetings. We use that a bit tongue in cheek. And I will say, I won't talk much about it, but our business meetings use a values-based consensus approach that very much is complementary or draws from NVC. It's essentially looking at needs or high-level needs that we'd call values, what Mickey Kashtan might call a non-controversial essence, to set criteria before we reached for consensus on decisions. And all of our decisions that were sort of brought up in those meetings were done by consensus. And we never had actually a decision that we weren't able to complete by consensus. And another thing I'll mention about our business meetings is we started with warm and fuzzies. We had a box and any kinds of appreciations people wanted to share. they could do it there, or we could reach into the box and read those out. Another thing that we did, it took some time before we realized this, but you know,
sorry, what is warm and fuzzies? Can you say a word?
And appreciations, affirmations, anything someone wanted. It could be a note if no one had a warm and fuzzy they wanted to share on the spot. We had a box where people, during the time between meetings, they would contribute. You know, meetings were interrupted by young people, so one of the things we caught on to is, why don't we have 10 minutes of uninterrupted young person time at the very beginning? So we had our young people, which at some point we had 6 under the age of 15, which was like very dangerous ratios for other intentional communities. That's a breaking point. And yeah, we'd let young people just talk to us uninterrupted. But I wanted to get to the other form of meeting, which we called a feelings and needs meeting, which happened about once a month. And that was more to tend towards the relationships in the group, and the trust. And in those meetings, everyone had a chance to take some amount of time to select someone or a number of people that would be what we called an empathy panel, and to be able to talk about anything on their mind and heart. And it was especially encouraged in those spaces for them to address other people who are part of the community that they may have had challenges with, or that have challenges with. So oftentimes those were spaces where we had things you could consider mediation between people. Those are also times to kind of bounce off of what Racheli was saying. Those are also times when we opened our own intimate relationships up to the bigger community, in a way that it's very, very unusual in kind of Western US culture. So that provided a kind of a relational hygiene for the group. And I think the last thing I want to say is the particular decision that I want to point to that was very NVC involved was actually my decision to leave the community. I had the opportunity to stay. It was very much tied with the school boundaries of my children, who I was taking care of. And I had the opportunity to keep them in their existing school that's across a boundary. I didn't find this out till late. So I went back to the community and said, hey, I could stay, but I only want you to stay if there's a real enthusiastic yes for having children in a way that's really engaged and invested. And there wasn't. And I say that's an NVC, that sort of NVC involved, because I think the ability to ask that question without falling into shame or blame or judgment, and to receive an honest yes or an honest no, was a dynamic that I think we were able to do because of our long-term practice with NVC.
Wow, thank you, Tarek. Really meaningful topics. I guess one thread that comes from these answers is the parenthood and also intimate relationships that through nonviolent communication can be shared and also supported. And I guess this is part of what creates a community, is actually sharing your most intimate relationship with other people. So that's a big thing. And I would like to continue this. Some of you already talked about, and it always comes. So what are the challenges you saw in your community facing, and how was NVC able to support through these challenges, or unable? Because there's also times when it's not working for everyone. Yeah, so I'm opening again this question for everyone. I remember, Racheli, that you wanted to speak about challenges, so maybe you can start if you are available.
Yeah, I can. So I think I'll try to touch 2, and let's see if I have enough time. So one thing is, I think there were real gaps in our social economic background and in our level of political trauma and also personal trauma, that I think somehow the tools we had at the time of NVC, they just were not able to completely hold or bridge. So I think the rest of it, but really NVC without a lot of political awareness and really awareness of the privilege in the differences in privilege. It can really have people who even live with you on a daily basis, share your toilets, share your meals, be left out and kind of on a not able to really meet the other people. And it goes both ways. The people who have more privilege also, somehow parts of them were being lost. And also the people who have, I would say, more trauma and more less access to privileges, we also lost them in some ways. So a lack of shared reality because of maybe not enough knowledge of how to work with power differences and trauma. And it was very evident in our, I think it can be evident in any group, but ours was really Palestinians who have a lot of, I mean, everybody is exposed to violence here on both sides, but I think there's some specific things that I can really remember. And it also touches with the rules that we had. Rules, we did have, I think, 3 or 4 rules: no meat, no drugs and alcohol, specifically because we were always a little bit under the threat of the police to, like, the authorities had reasons to want to close us because we're breaking the norm and living together. So we didn't want to have any drugs in the premises, and also alcohol to respect the Muslim tradition. And this was a rule that was often being broken. And now I've been learning with Leonie Smith about creating norms that really serve life, that when you have a rule that's continuously broken, there's probably a reason why it's being broken. And in retrospect, I can really see that the people who are mostly breaking this rule, like not all the time, but, and I would judge as so disrespectful, and why can't they just do what we're asking them? There's a good reason for this rule. They were mostly people with heavy trauma, that this was their way of dealing. And in a way, we excluded parts of them. And when we created the norms and we weren't, it's a whole thing. And that was something that NVC, as we held it as a practice at that moment, wasn't able to meet. And yeah, so for me, it's really interesting to have that emphasis of NVC, of like how to really hold trauma and political trauma and personal trauma and welcome it in. And do I have time for one more? Or I can't hear you, Arnie. Why don't I hear you?
Sorry, you have 2 more minutes.
Oh, great. So one more thing that I can say, because we came from the issue of sexuality. I think it's complicated. There's a lot in every culture, but it's because we were at the intersection of Israeli and Palestinian. So Muslim, Jewish, religious, non-religious norms, we really kind of had very strict rules that men and women, unless they're a couple that is like married or, really long-term, do not share sleep in separate quarters, and sexuality is not welcome in the main space. And I think that was a big challenge that we kind of were not able to unpack, even though we had because then you have a very sexually charged space with, like, people breaking the rules, and we wanted to create safety, both so that people will feel safe to come from different cultures, and also, yeah, to create a safe space. And NVC didn't have like we weren't, it was so charged and complicated that with NVC somehow there needed to be more work, more tools brought into the space than what the NVC trainings we had were able to provide us. And maybe one more little thing about that it also affected, I think, the couples who lived in the space. So if I can't show affection to my partner on a daily basis, there's actually research about that it harms your sexuality. And I think it did something to all of us who are living there as couples to not have affection in the space, and it created something, yeah, so if just to say that I think there's another module that we still need to, I don't know, that is missing to support NVC and yeah, support the community there.
Wow, Racheli, thank you. Yeah, big challenges of privilege and trauma and sexuality. Yeah, I also resonate with the fact that NVC at the time wasn't able to support us in these issues sometimes. Who would like to go next? Yes, Shachar.
Yeah, I will go next.
Again, there's about 5 minutes each for this.
Yeah. I will refer now to maybe more my inner community or of inside the big community where I live, and also in the 6 people sub community I'm in. For me, the shortcomings of NVC, they come to life when there is a very intense emotional conflict that is not at that moment, not solvable through talking. There has to be kind of some physical aspects before actually even starting to talk, like before the usage of any words, maybe some emotional reaction like screaming, crying, I don't know, something that is not via the language. And for me, this is often missing in this NVC conflict resolution, or yeah, this is in short, but I think you understand the point.
So you're saying the verbal aspect, or like the character of NVC is sometimes not enough, or not the right way to solve certain conflicts. Like there needs to be something more other than verbal conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. And I see also this question in the chat that the communities incorporate body work, and I think that should be a must in a way, to work also not with the speech but also with the body. We don't hear you now, Alan.
Ernie, you are muted.
Kai or Tarek, would you like to continue? Thank you, Shachar.
I can go, unless Tarek, you want to go, but I can't see you, so maybe I'll just talk. Yeah, there's two kind of challenges that kind of come up to mind that I think would add to this conversation. One is, for me, I'm really trying to explore nonviolence and nonviolent communication, not just with people, but with all life. I really feel that that's essential. It just feels kind of weird to just do it with people, because for me, that's the story of separation, that we're not part of ecology. We're separate from each other. We're separate from our body, and our mind are separate. So, and because we live in a very natural setting, it's always a challenge. How do you do NVC or hold that consciousness with creatures that you have a hard time communicating? It's almost like a totally different language, but they have needs. And also just how it's so easy to kill a creature that's smaller and weaker than you, that your culture or your mind deems as invasive, an enemy, or just not worth existing. And so right now, to be specific, we have some mice and a raccoon living in the second floor. And the raccoon's been there before we came, because this is a 150-year-old thatch roof house that was there. So it's an indigenous presence, but it doesn't work with us. And part of the reason it doesn't work is because people have been telling us that they carry diseases and so on. So it's the dilemma. The standard approach would be to kill them. But, just like, certain genocides, people are attributed as cockroaches, which makes it easier for us to do things that we normally wouldn't do to friends. That's happening in my mind, and there are certain things that I have so much ease in killing and actually joy. Like, I love killing mosquitoes, and it's quite insightful to just see, oh, how quickly I can go into kill mode. So that's a dilemma. Is I don't know how to communicate with the raccoon, and I very much feel like it's my right to kick the raccoon out. And it might be a family up there. So, and I haven't heard very many NVC trainers talk about like how to work with non-human community members. Because if we consider the earth as a shared community, we've taken up a lot of space, and it's quite, for me, just like, how can we not address this issue, especially with what's happening in the world? And for our own healing, to feel like we belong in the community of Earth, and that we're not always having to kill all the other creatures for us to live a happy life. So that's one really big one that I'm working with every day. And I'm not too excited about the trajectory I'm heading in right now.
Can you say more a little bit about, when you mentioned it, but how NVC helps you in solving this dilemma, this conflict?
Yeah, one is instead of jumping to just kill it, because that's what we should do, I'm just trying to connect to the connection of the mourning that I have of being so disconnected from the creature, and trying to grow the compassion. Mosquitoes, I have the hardest time, but there's a lot of other creatures. There's a creature that's eating a lot of our vegetables and our fruit trees, and I have the means to ask a hunter to kill it, but then I'm like, well, who's to say those are my vegetables, and this little, it's like a little deer, but it doesn't know which ones that I want and which ones it can eat. It's just eating the best ones, and that's what I do. So I've really changed my approach to wanting to just get rid of it, to being like, let's try this. It's really challenging. I'm really not happy about you eating all my fruit trees. But I want to transform. I want to see beyond the enemy image I have of you, and slowly grow that. Maybe I can really accept mosquitoes as my friends soon. So it actually really helps me to really focus on, okay, and what are the needs, that I'm working off of? What's so important that I would want to kill or exclude a living being? So and being able to mourn that sometimes I'm not there, and I'm really sad about that. And I want to be conscious of it and just hold that I'm not as nonviolent as I would like to be, and I'm growing that compassion. And on a good day, I can expand that circle, so it's not just the people I like, but it's the people I have difficulties. It's the creatures that I have difficulties with. So that's been, it's really a slow growing process, just like babies learn how to walk. It's just like, I don't know really how I'm going to do this, but I'm trying.
Thank you, Kai. Yeah. Wow. thank you for bringing this to consciousness, the fact that we are not only humans trying to live in community, but actually with all the creatures. I would like to give more time to Tarek for, this is our few last minutes, 5 last minutes. So I would like to see if you have.
Yeah, Ty, you brought so much up. We had a mouse dilemma as well in this community, which I don't think I named, but it's Maitri, M-A-T-R-I, Sanskrit for everlasting kindness. We would, in slang, we would call it my tree house because it also was surrounded by some beautiful trees. Yeah, and the whole approach to how we dealt with mice in the house. I mean, let's say at the minimum, we sought, and I don't think we ever did kill any, but we did remove them, or remove the food that they relied on in the house. I'm actually in Namibia at the moment, working on a project where we're looking at innovations. My colleague who's sitting right next to me, Ruth Kansky, who was at one of the ITTs in Talita, Kum, Bejala, West Bank, and where we met actually. We're looking at how communities here of people and wildlife can live together and in fact benefit from each other. And a good component of that is talking about empathy and animals. So maybe if there's time in the Q&A, we can delve into that further. But to respond more, I think more directly to the question you posed, Arnie, I think that one of the huge challenges and incredible learnings I had in the community that I've been talking about when we did have members of color living with us. In the US context, there's a great deal of historical trauma and ongoing systemic inequities. And it seemed like even those most skilled with NVC, most experienced with it, we would hit points where it wasn't able to get through. And I think this initiated a process of learning that more was needed, that we needed a certain kind of awareness about systems of power that were going on. We needed a kind of depth of self-empathy to be able to wrestle with the fact that some of us benefited from immense privileges in that system of power, even though we didn't want to, and all the shame and incoherence that we felt with our own values when that was brought to our attention. We needed certainly listening helped. That's one of the things, just being able to listen and listen through judgment, listen through blame. That was one of the things that kind of those nonviolent communication skills, those capacities helped us with. But we did a lot of learning. I did a lot of learning in trying to understand. And the danger is even that nonviolent communication, because it puts forward some techniques and ideas that seem to be so valuable universally, the danger is that it becomes, and it plays into the power dynamics that are there, that the person who is not fluent in NVC or expressing themselves with those kinds of skills now has another thing they need to work through, or another thing that they're carrying to be able to express. And that those who often have the access to take NVC trainings and read that, and that those people tend to have more ease in those conversations and more power in those conversations. So NVC can exacerbate power differences. And I think not understanding that, not realizing that, and accounting for that in community can be very destructive when you have people in community who represent different identities with huge socially constructed power differences.
Wow. Thank you, Tarek. I think it's a very important topic, like how NVC doesn't become another separation, something that separates us from NVC speakers and non-speakers, and also that exaggerates the power dynamics that you talk about and the way it's used today. Thank you. So I want to thank all the speakers, Tarek and Shachar, Racheli and Kai. And now I would love Miho to allow questions from the audience, and the speakers will try to answer it or address it. So thank you.
So perhaps Sho-chan, can you raise some of the questions that were already written in the chat?
This is for Ernie or Arnie.
Yes.
Just to be clear, what we thought to do was to take to invite you to raise your hands and also take some questions from the chat. So it's fine.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I wasn't following the chat so much. So yeah.
There are certain questions in the chat that's really interesting. So if you could pick those up. One being a question from Hansel. Can either speaker comment on the concept of happiness realized in community versus out of community?
Do you hear Shoko speaking? Because I don't.
Yes, I heard her.
Great.
So if one of the speakers is wishing to address this question.
I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat it? I didn't hear Shoko when she spoke, so.
I will say it again.
Thank you.
There was a request to talk about the topic of happiness living in community versus nightmare or being like not happy living without a community. That's what I understood.
I can say just that I love that question. I saw it in the chat. And I just had it the whole time that I was living in the community. There was a level of happiness in my body and joy and aliveness that it was not even related to whatever was happening. I could have a bad day or a good day, but the beginning of my, like the starting point of my joy and liveliness and happiness was just enhanced the whole time. Whatever it was, yeah, basic level of happiness that was just higher. And I definitely had my lows while I was there, but it was, I hope that answers the question.
I would also like to say something about this. For me, it's a bit like relationship, like a romantic relationship. If there is the willingness and to commit to go through challenges, community can be fertile ground to grow and develop and be more of what we want to be. And if that doesn't exist, it's quite horrible to live actually in a community where I feel disempowered or where I cannot communicate with people. In a way, I feel that living in community is kind of a random choice that I don't have a choice. The choice is where I put my energy, whether I'm in community or without community. And for me personally, I feel more realized or more positive about life when I have more people around me to bring fertility and support me in developing. So for me, it's about this.
I can also, oh, the bikers. I'd also like to share if, Sahar, were you finished? Sorry, I wasn't.
Yes, I was.
Okay. I would also just say that the way I see it is we're always in community. It's just our sense of it. And I think it's easier to imagine like when it's intentional. There's a active effort to stay connected and have that as a clear goal. And so we're always in community. It's just how deep you want to go. And for me, practicing NVC and really being in a tight knit, very open about my relationships, about how, my vulnerabilities, is super healing. Sometimes it's a bit too intense. I've gone into depression. I've been in a community where we all got depressed for several months and it just seemed like a disaster. But we were able to just be with the lows, which is quite hard in a normal setting where we're not so connected deeply to each other. Then when you're mourning, when you're struggling, you're kind of up to your own networks or resources. But when it's much more transparent what you're experiencing and you have regular connection to people, then for me, not only is there more possibility to get the quality of support, of empathy. I was in depression. I was almost, ready to die. And I just had a few people in my community who I knew I could go to. I knew I could just say whatever, and be held and not get advice, not get criticism, because none of that's going to help me if I'm depressed, and I'm at the edge of my life. But to just be with me in that intensity of despair and just experience the level of trust that I know my life can be right here in their hands and I'm going to be okay. And that's not something that's easily accessible. And I feel that's really in particular what draws me so much into deep NVC spaces is to be able to swim in an ocean of empathy. And even if not everybody is there to support you, somebody is there. And I so long for that to just be a normal state for my life and for everybody. And I just feel like so many people would be healed and saved from deep suffering if we could do that. So for me, my own healing process and just exploring what did we lose, in our journey as a civilization and where to come back to. And I feel like I touched that in NVC. In these deeper community settings. And I've seen so many people heal. So it doesn't always work, but I feel like it's better than anything else I've seen. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. And we'd probably love to hear actual voices from some of you. We have seen some questions written in the chat. And if you want to just read the question out loud, or you have another questions, yes, we'd love to hear your voices. If you're happy to raise your hand, and both English and Japanese are welcome. If you click reaction, and you can raise your hand. So Chiram? If you
yes.
can unmute yourself, yes.
I'm so sorry about the lights, but I'm far in the mountains. And would it be okay if I speak now? Question. So in my study of NVC, or my start of studying NVC, the part of the body is a thing I'm adding with Feldenkrais method. And I'm curious about how people integrated NVC with maybe something that is more with the body. Even if for me, NVC is not just language, it's more a trying to be in empathy. And that can be with the body too. But if somebody found a physical practice that helped communication and the connection, I hope this is a clear question. Yeah.
So is your question, Shahar,
So
did you get the question?
is the question if we found or acquainted with methods to involve the body in an NVC conflict, in a conflict that is using NVC?
Yes, and by conflict, I mean also sometimes things that maybe, yes, I would say yes.
So I will say that say something that sometimes is a bit challenging for the people around me to do and to live from. But for me, this point where the body is required to be there to express something, to let something out, is usually can be unpleasant. And it might be sometimes for the people around and for the person who's doing it, can be very pleasant, but for the people around, it means just taking it as something that is true for that moment, meaning a person is now screaming at me, and keeping in mind now there is space for this expression to come out, and it's not really about the words, or it's not really about anything, to just let it come, and then later to see what does it bring up, what, like, to kind of have spaces that we a bit go out of the language and do go into conflict that is more present. And people don't agree with me always on this, because they see, oh, this is too much, this is not creating closeness. And I think it's true. And in the beginning, there's few stages. There is this chaos moment where this is really not creating any connection. But in the long term, I can totally see how it does create connection and deepening of the trust in the community or in the relationship. This is my personal opinion on this.
Thank you.
So we actually thank you, Chiran and Shachar. So we actually need to finish soon. I want to check with you, Racheli.
Check with me about the time.
Yes.
It's up to, look, the plan was to have time to harvest in small groups for whoever wants after we do the closing announcements. I can ask you, Arnie, and the speakers if you want to stay a few more minutes and take a couple more questions, or we all need to go. Personally, I'm okay to stay. My son is okay here. I wonder about Kai, Arnie, Tarek, Shachal.
Yeah, I actually need to finish.
You need to leave. Okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot more to say. This topic of NVC and community building, community living is such a big and complex topic. So I would like to thank, first of all, everyone, Shachar, Racheli, Tarek, and Kai, and also all the supporters of this event, of this conversation. So many people took part in having it. Yeah, and about the offering to continue, would you like to say something, Racheli?
Yes. So
I also want to thank the interpreters.
Yes.
Yes, there's a lot of people. I want to thank you, Arnie, for moderating and being with us. And
you,
you're even in
Karima.
the middle of your weekend with your child. Thank you so much for being with us. And also to say that Arnie has a fascinating podcast, unfortunately only in Hebrew at the moment, about many topics of social change. And I really enjoyed your presence holding the space with us. And thank our speakers, so Shachal and Kai and Tarek, for joining us. And the big team that made this happen behind the scenes, from the Japanese production, coordination, interpretation, and this couldn't happen without you. And thanking all of you who are joined us today. We will have 30 more minutes that we're going to stay now, and we will go into small group harvesting and discussion. And just before that, I want to announce that this is part of the Japanese, this is a pre-event for the global NVC Rising Japanese Festival, which will take part on, which will happen in June 17th to 19th. So in just about 3 weeks, even less. And you're all really welcome to join. We're going to have many more sessions of learning and deepening around NVC. We would love to see you there. Can someone share in the chat the link to the festival? And also we're going to have one more free event that will be in English with Japanese simultaneous translation to honor and celebrate this festival, which will be on June 14th, Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So if you can, Shachar, and if you can share the links for both the Japanese festival happening in 3 weeks and for the free event. The free event will be really, really beautiful, the next one, and I'm very much hoping to see you all there. English speakers, people from all over the world, and Japanese people, and Japanese speakers. And I just wanted to mention that also this is an NVC Rising event, and that NVC Rising is an initiative that started at the beginning of the pandemic with the goal of enhancing the global NVC community, strengthening our connections and our learnings together. And yeah, we also have a year-long learning community that you can join, and different events, empathy cafes, different things, and we would love to see you there. I think that's all, and I'm going to be welcoming Goni to hold the space and bring us into small group work and processing of this fascinating time together. I really loved being with you. Thank you so much for being here. Hugs. Goni. There's one more thing important to say. Hensel, are you still here? If he is, can we spotlight him for a moment? Because he is a part of our Hensel is part of our learning community, and he had the idea to hold this event. He said, oh, it would be so interesting to have a speaker panel, and we just followed your intuition and your creativity, and I love that this is happening. So just appreciating your voice and your idea. And yeah, so glad that you're here. Goni, are you ready to hold us?
Yes.